Hello there, and welcome to 2021. Congratulations on passing 2020. The question is, how are you going to pass your PTE test in 2021? That's what we're going to look at in this video.
Yay!
Okay, so in order to pass your PTE test in 2021, you first need to ask yourself three critical questions. First question is, when are you going to take the test? Maybe you're thinking about taking the test like next week or in a month or 3 months, 6 months, or even 12 months from now. You need to start thinking about it, right? You also need to understand what scores you need. This will be for migration or university entrance, etc. And there'll be specific set scores like 79 or 65, etc. These have not changed, by the way, not yet anyway. They may change in the future, but for now they have not changed. The third question you need to ask yourself is, what is your current level? What score are you now? Because if you understand that, let's say you need 65 and you're at 65 or 70, cool bananas, you're ready to go. But if you need 65 and you're currently at, say, 55, then we need to do some thinking. So in this video, we're going to look at some top tips to help you pass your test in 2021. Okay, so before we get started, make sure you download the goals PDF, which is in the description below. Let's start with the reading section. Reading tip number 1, you need to grow your vocabulary. So the PTE test is an academic English test. That is, the texts that they use in the reading section come from academic sources. And if you haven't been to university in a while, you'll realize that the texts that you read in PTE are quite different than a newspaper or a magazine, etc. They have quite complex vocabulary. That's the main distinction between a general English language test, say from a newspaper or a magazine, versus an academic text, okay? The complexity of the vocabulary. And you also have to understand that they'll be based on particular themes, like, I don't know, it might be like botany or psychology or politics. You get all these kind of academic topics as well. So we need to think about how we build our vocabulary, okay? So how do we do that? Well, one of the things that you'll need to start doing is reading, and you'll need to start identifying weaknesses in your vocabulary by theme. That is, maybe you have a great vocabulary for engineering or computer science, but maybe your vocabulary is lacking in, I don't know, astronomy or one of these other academic subjects. So you do not need to learn these academic subjects, but you do need to familiarize yourself with some of these terms, okay? Otherwise, apart from that academic vocabulary, it's all just general English vocabulary, right? So there are important high frequency words that you need to understand. Cool, so start growing your vocab. Reading tip number 2, learn the E2 language methods. Okay, so there's no magic tricks when it comes to the reading section, despite what some other YouTubers will say. You need to understand the text that you're reading, and you also need to understand the question type and how to complete the question type successfully. Now, there are certain approaches that you should use, and we call these methods at E2 language. That is, when I'm looking at a multiple choice, multiple answers, for example, how do I approach this question type? And there certainly are ways, step-by-step ways to approach a question type that are superior to other ways or not having a method at all. So one of the things that I encourage you to do is to learn the E2 language methods, because we've developed these over time and they work, they're powerful. So if you go to e2language.com, one of the things that we have on the platform are these powerful methods lessons. And while you'll get some of them on YouTube, you will get all of them on the platform. Okay, let's take a look at some goals that you can set for yourself so you can achieve your reading score. Okay, so what you want to do on a daily basis is read a Science Daily article. The text that you'll find on sciencedaily.com are quite similar to the type of text that you'll see on your test. And they're all categorized by theme as well. So you can start to build vocabulary by theme. What you might want to do in order to make sure you're understanding those articles is to write a summary of the paragraph. You could even write a single sentence summary, which is actually one of the writing tasks in the PTE. That means that you make sure that you understand the paragraph completely. While you're reading or while you're summarizing, you should also be picking out new vocabulary and writing it down so you can refer to it later. Now, on a weekly basis, you want to complete practice questions, and the ones on E2 language are very high quality. And you should also come across and join an E2 language live class as well. Cool. Okay, so that's what you need to do for reading. Let's take a look at listening. Listening. Listening tip number 1, work out how best to listen. Okay, this tip sounds a bit strange, right? Because you would think that listening is just something that you do naturally. You certainly hear naturally, right? But how do you comprehend? How do you understand spoken English? And one of the challenges of the PTE Academic is that the audio files that they use are actually real life lectures or interviews. And in real life, English language speakers often sort of bumble their way through things. They have incomplete sentences. It's just not very clear or coherent. So one of the things that you need to do is start to understand spoken English and how spoken English works. That is how connected speech works and word stress and sentence stress. All of these elements of spoken English will actually help you to then understand through listening. Okay, so there's that aspect. Okay, another aspect is how your mind works. Take a look at this question here. This is a highlight correct summary question from the listening section of PTE Academic. You'll notice that the answer options here are very long. Now, what's going to happen on test day is you're going to hear a lecture or an interview, and the question is, can you read this and understand it and listen to the lecture or interview at the same time, simultaneously? The answer is you cannot, because that is not how your mind works. One of the things that we've done with our methods is we've thought about cognition and how the mind works. And so when we teach you the method for this particular listening question, we don't tell you to listen and read at the same time because it's impossible. Now this leads on to our next tip. Listening tip number 2, improve your note taking. So what do you do when you're faced with a question like that on test day? Well, what you need to do is get good at note-taking, because note-taking actually enables you to listen to that lecture. You can write and listen at the same time. That's one thing you can do. And then you can match your notes to the question and you can get the correct answer. The thing is, you need to get good at note-taking, okay? So note-taking means that you're able to listen to a lecture or an interview and pick out the main salient points. That is, the key words or the key phrases. You can understand the entire thing, but you'll be noting down keywords and key phrases, particularly nouns, verbs, maybe adjectives. And this will then sort of help your memory when you're looking at those answer options. Note-taking is critical, and we've got a video on the platform on e2language.com for that. Okay, so let's look at some listening goals for 2021. So what you want to do on a daily basis is watch a TV show or listen to a podcast and try to do sort of 5 practice activities on e2language.com. And what you can do on a weekly basis is listen to a podcast and read the transcripts. It's really critical that you get to see the relationship between spoken English and written English because they're quite different, right? So if you are listening to a podcast, that's great practice. And you might want to have the transcript in front of you because it will really help you to see that relationship. Okie dokie, let's talk about writing. But before we do so, if you're not yet a subscriber to this YouTube channel, click that subscribe button. And also feel free to leave a comment below if you have any tips for 2021. Okay, let's talk about writing. Writing tip number 1, get to know all the PTE task types and the scoring. Okay, so according to PTE Academic, there are 2 tasks in the writing section. They are summarize written text, when you write a single sentence summary from a paragraph, and write essay, where you write an essay. However, there are other tasks in the listening section and in the reading section that actually contribute points to your writing score. So you should be aware of this, because if you are getting a low writing score, it might not just be because of the writing section or the essay. It might be because of reading and writing fill in the blanks, or listening right from dictation, etc. So you need to be conscious of this. Writing tip number 2, improve your grammar. Okay, so this is a bit of a tricky one. How do you improve your grammar? Because you are scored on your grammar certainly in the essay, as well as summarized spoken text and summarized written text, and as well as the speaking section as well. So you need to improve your grammar. This is a very difficult task though, because English grammar, or grammar from any language, I should say, is very complicated. It's almost like a set of rules or a set of laws that govern the use of vocabulary. For example, if I have one computer, but then I have more than one computers, for example, plurality, we've got verb tenses, we've got the right prepositions, it gets pretty crazy. What I recommend you do if you do need to improve your grammar, 2 things. One, you can go to e2school.com. It's e2school.com. It's a sister website for e2language.com, and there's a free grammar course on there, so that will be helpful. And also in our writing live classes, we touch on grammar as well. Okay, so let's set some goals for writing. What you want to do is study grammar review on E2 School on a daily basis. If you can, go through all the verb tenses and the adjectives, etc. Refresh your memory. Also, pay attention to grammar. So when you're reading or when you're listening, pay attention to the way that the verbs work or which preposition was used. You need to sort of teach yourself. You need to become conscious of grammar. And on a weekly basis, you can attend or watch the E2 Language live writing classes. Okay, so that's writing, and at some point, you're going to want to get some feedback on your writing. That is, you want an expert to take a look at your writing and to tell you exactly what you're doing right and wrong, because it's very difficult for you to know because it's subjective. You give it to an expert, they'll look at it and go, right, you need to improve this, this, and this. That's what we do at e2language.com. You can also do the mini mock test as well, which comes with writing assessments. That will also help you to determine your level and whether you're ready or not ready to take the PTE test. Okay, let's talk about speaking. Speaking tip number 1, improve your pronunciation. So the PTE is pretty strict on clear pronunciation. You do not need to have a native accent. You can have your Arabic accent or your Spanish accent or whatever, that's completely fine. But your accent cannot interfere with your pronunciation, okay? So you still need to make all of the sounds accurately. What are the sounds? That is pronunciation. So in English, there are 44 sounds, individual units of sound like p, m, k, l, r, for example. But then there's also consonant clusters as well, where you combine 2 sounds together like cr, as in crust, or kryptonite, for example. So there's consonant clusters. So these are all the sounds of English, and you need to start to work on problematic sounds that you have that come from your first language, because maybe in your first language you don't have the l sound, for example. If you don't have the l sound, it's going to feel awkward and strange and be challenging for you. Therefore, you need to practice that particular sound. Speaking tip number 2, reflect on your delivery. So the PTE is strict on your pronunciation. It's also very strict on your delivery, okay? So there's sort of 2 aspects to speaking. There's certainly the sounds that you need to produce accurately, but then you've got the way that you deliver your speech. That includes the rhythm, the intonation, the pausing, the connected speech, the sentence stress, the word stress. There's all of these different aspects to it. One of the things that we do at E2 Language is we've produced these videos called Speaking Science. They'll be in the description below. Check those out, they're very helpful. So let's think about setting some goals for speaking. On a daily basis, I suggest that you do reading aloud. This is extremely helpful, especially if you have a transcript where you can compare your pronunciation and your delivery with a native speaker, or a near native speaker is also fine. Someone whom you like the sound of their voice. That is a good thing to do. You can also check out Speaking Lab on e2school.com. It's a pronunciation course. And on a weekly basis, you should think about joining our live speaking classes for PTE Academic. Okay, so there we had some tips and some goals, which are incredibly important for 2021. So I want to find out what your goals are for 2021 in terms of PT Academic. So into the comments below, tell me, when do you think you're taking your test? You can just estimate, that's fine. What score do you need? And what do you think your current score is? And if there's a big gap between what your current score is and what your the score that you need is, then you're going to have to think very carefully about preparation. Anyway, let me know. I'll have a read through them. See you soon.